Yeah, I'm going nowhere fast here. This is a perfect example of why a winch is one of the best bits of gear you can add to any four-wheel drive. Doesn't matter how big your rig is or how experienced you are behind the wheel. If you do enough four-wheel driving, you're probably going to get stuck at some stage. It's just part of the fun. Now, whether you're like me and you can't help but throw yourself up every big tough hill or deep bog hole that you come across, or if you're just out searching for that elusive perfect campsite, you never know when you're going to get stuck. And having a winch on hand means the difference in those scenarios between a funny story to tell around the campfire and an ordeal that you'd want to forget quickly. But here's the thing, you can't just bolt a winch to the front of your vehicle and hope for the best when you get stuck. A winch is a tool that needs to be used properly and treated with respect. If it's used the wrong way, at best you can burn your winch out, and at worst you can damage your vehicle or even hurt yourself. But don't sweat it, because in this video I'm going to show you how to make any winch recovery safer and easier, regardless of the terrain you're bogged in or how badly you're stuck. So let's get into it. Okay, so in a situation like this, the very first thing to do before you even look at your winch is assess why you're stuck and not going anywhere. If you've got your bull bar wedged into a rock, then no amount of winching is going to pull you free. And if you've got a wheel 4 foot in the air, then winching forwards could put you on your side. An old fella I've spent a lot of time with out bush used to have a saying, there's no situation so bad that you can't make it worse, and that is absolutely spot on when it comes to four-wheel drive recoveries. So first, let's have a look at why we're not going anywhere here. Well, it's pretty obvious why I'm not going anywhere. It's a combination of tyres trying to climb these rock steps and an overall lack of traction, so we'll start the recovery process with the winch. Now, around this side of the vehicle is the perfect example of why you always want to look underneath before you hook your winch up. As you can see here, there's a big old hole, and even if I do hook the winch up, that tie's just going to drop deeper into it. I'm going to jam the slider straight into that rock, and that's just not going to be any good. Now, track building isn't just for driving, it's great for recovery situations too. So I'm going to fill that hole with rocks, and that way when I'm winching forwards, the winch isn't fighting against the terrain. Now, a winch is just about useless without recovery gear. So let's have a quick look at what you need to pull off a winch recovery. So the things that you need for an effective winch recovery are as follows. For a basic winch recovery at an absolute minimum, you'll need a tree trunk protector and you'll need a winch damper, this big orange fella here. Now, if the anchor point, the tree that you want to winch off, isn't close enough to the vehicle, that's when you add a winch extension strap, this purple fella here. Now, if you're seriously bogged, you may need to do a double line pull, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but for that, you'll need a snatch block and a shackle. So with the track building done and the recovery gear ready, it's time to choose an anchor point to connect the winch to. Now, I'm going to winch off this tree right here. It's perfect for a number of reasons. First of all, it's big and strong and healthy. And second of all, it's directly in front of the vehicle. You should avoid winching more than about 15 degrees off dead straight ahead to prevent the winch from twisting the bull bar cradle. To roughly estimate how far 15 degrees off dead straight is, draw a line from your rear view mirror to each of your front blinkers, no more than that angle. So bear with me for a second while I have a little rant, because this one's important. Anytime that you connect your winch to a tree, don't just wrap the winch rope around the tree, use a tree trunk protector. It stops the tree from being damaged. And in the worst case scenario, it stops the tree from being ring-barked and killed. Greenies don't need more ammunition against four-wheel drivers. Get a tree trunk protector. They're cheap, they're affordable, they cost about the same as a 6-pack of beer. There is no excuse for not using one. So here's something I've seen people do more than once. When you're winding out your winch rope, don't wind it out so far that you can actually see the drum on the winch. You need to leave at least one full wrap of rope completely covering the drum for maximum strength. If you haven't got a tree that's close enough to you, use a winch extension strap. Now, with most of the tension taken up on the rope, you can adjust the tree trunk protector to the perfect height. What you want is a height that stops the rope from dragging on the ground, potentially being frayed and damaged. It also allows you to winch up and over the obstacle you're stuck on instead of being pulled down into it when you winch in. However, you don't want to go too high because the majority of the strength in the tree is right here at its base. Good rule of thumb, don't go any higher than about the tree's width. Now the final piece of the puzzle is a winch dampener. In the unlikely scenario that something breaks while you're at full tension, while you're winching in, this will catch it before it connects with a car or a bystander or anything like that. It's a vital bit of safety gear. Pop it over the winch hook if you can. If you're on a hill like this, it'll stop it from sliding down the winch cable. And make sure to keep any bystanders well away, behind a big tree, and at least double the distance of the length of the winch cable. All right, so now time for the winch recovery. So you're in first gear, low range or drive if you've got an automatic. As you're winching in, gently feed the accelerator on. You want to be able to assist the winch by driving at the same time, but you've got to be careful not to overrun the winch. If you feel the vehicle gaining traction and the winch cable going slack, just back off and let the winch catch up. Keep the revs up at all times. Your winch will be using heaps of electrical power, so hold the revs at about 1500 RPM to ensure the alternator is supplying as much charge to your battery as possible. The heat generated under operation is the biggest killer of winches, so if you have to, winch in at 60-second intervals with 5-minute cooling off periods in between. That'll keep your winch motor and your gearbox internal temperatures down and prolong its life. Most importantly, when you're winching, don't ever let your winch stall out. That's when you get to a point where you're winching in, you've got your thumb on the controller, but the vehicle's not moving. If that happens and the winch stalls, that'll risk burning any winch motor out. Now, if that happens, what you should do is back off the winch slowly and carefully until the vehicle can be secured in park with the handbrake on or in first gear. And once it's safe to, hop out and have a look at what's stopping you from moving forwards. Maybe that you need to do a bit more track building, or you might need to do what's known as a double line pull. Now, I don't actually need to do one on this hill, but I'll show you how it works just so you can see. So I've back down the hill so I can set this demonstration up. The first step to setting up a double line pull is to unspool the winch rope to double the length you need to reach the anchor point. So back up to the anchor point, and what we're going to use is this fella right here, the snatch block. Now what this does is it adds a mechanical advantage to the winch recovery. By doubling the rope through this and back to the vehicle, you double the pulling power of the winch. So the way to set this up is to open it up like that, offer up your rope through it like that, and close it back up again. Now, to connect it to the anchor point, there is a right and wrong way to use a bow shackle. You've got the curved part of the bow shackle, and you've got the part at the bottom here where the pin goes through. What you should do to prevent damage to your tree trunk protector is make sure the tree trunk protector is on the bow part of the shackle and that the pin for the shackle goes through the eyelet, like this. Final part of the equation, connect the winch hook back to a recovery point on your vehicle. This is how it should look when it's set up properly. Note that the rope doesn't cross back over itself. And of course, don't forget your winch dampener. Put it over both lines of the rope just in case anything does let go. And that's the double line pull setup done. Doubling your winch's pulling power like this won't only make it easier to recover your vehicle, but it'll stress your winch less too. Once you've pulled off a successful winch recovery, here's a little trick to make sure your winch is in perfect nick and ready to go next time. If you haven't been able to winch directly straight forwards, you might find that your winch rope has bunched up to one side or the other of the drum. If that's the case, just unspool it and then spool it back in, neatly guiding it backwards and forwards across the drum. Put a bit of tension on it as you go, and of course, keep your fingers away from it if you like having all of them. And there you go, tips to make any winch recovery safer, easier, and more effective. What do you reckon? Have I missed any? Or have you got an idea for the next video I should do? Chuck them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more tips, tricks, and techniques to become a 4-wheel driving and camping guru.